We are in Genesis chapter 42. So we'll do a few of these chapters and soon we'll get to the end. Very quickly, we will be finishing 50 chapters of Genesis. In chapter 41, you remember it was about Pharaoh's dream. And so he dreamed two dreams. And in that two dreams, he found Joseph to interpret the dreams, and it's with regards to 7 years of flourish and 7 years of famine. And in so doing, Joseph recommended to Pharaoh what he should do to appoint somebody to take charge. And finally, Pharaoh assigned it to Joseph, and Joseph was made number 2 in the land, or basically number 1 in the land, number 2 at the throne. And Joseph now has total command of everything that's happening in the land of Egypt, and he supervised the 7 years of flourish where there was abundance of harvest, and he kept a lot of that so that they are ready for 7 years of famine. Now in chapter 42, it's about the famine. And the story now turns from Egypt to Canaan, to the family of Joseph. In verse 42, Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, and somehow he knew. Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" He said, "Indeed, I have heard there is grain in Egypt. So go down to that place and buy for us that we may live and not die." Now, there are a couple of things that we need to figure out. Number one, news travel fast, right? The news have gone to Jacob, that there is help in Egypt. And amongst all the places around, the next place is Egypt. Then that's grain, right? And then he says, go down to that place so you know that it is Canaan, and it goes down to Egypt. And remember, all these are geographical terrain words. Going down would mean that Canaan is on a higher ground than Egypt, or where they could go and buy food. That would be at the Nile river mouth. And that whole area will be your lowest point in Egypt. So they went down to the place and they are about to buy because they have money. And the purpose is that they may live and not die. You notice in the Hebrew way of expressing, may live is not enough, not die is to complement that it is so important. This particular thing that they have to do is to buy grain. Now going into verse 3 tells us that Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. Remember, Joseph and all his brothers, they are supposed to be 12. And so why are there 10? So minus Joseph, there should be 11. But only 10 went because Jacob, you can see here, Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers. For he said, lest some evil fall on him. So the word is translated as calamity, because in Jacob's mind, Joseph died because of wild animals. So he said, I don't want to lose my younger son as well. Now notice the two younger sons would be Joseph and Benjamin. Both are sons of Rachel. And in loving Rachel more than Leah, Joseph and Benjamin are also loved more by Jacob, than the rest of the brothers. And that was why Joseph in particular was upset, has upset all the brothers, because he was a dreamer and Jacob loved him more, gave him a multicolored coat. And so Jacob was not about to lose another son. And so the rest of the sons, these are the 10 of Israel. The sons of Israel literally means the son of Jacob, because Israel or Israel is another name for Jacob. went down to buy grain among those who journeyed, which means that there were many people who were traveling to Egypt to buy grain. Why? Because the famine was in the land of Canaan. And that's why this is the beginning of the story in chapter 42. Verse 6. Now Joseph was governor over the land. The word governor is very interesting. The word governor actually means the master. And in Egyptian terms, the master is the one who dominates. So the word really is not governor. He would be the one who has absolute power over the land. That's what this word is. So the English doesn't translate it very well. So Joseph had absolute power and dominate and is the master over the land. That is what it means. And it was he who sold all the people of the land. So he was the one who was in charge of all the grain and all the sales. Right? He is like the CEO and the general manager and everything all rolled in one. And Joseph's brothers came and, notice this word, bowed down. Bowed down. In verse 6, the word bow down is hava, right? And it comes from the word shaka. Same word. This literally means to bow down to the ground. In other translations, you will find the word worship is used, right? This is the word we translate as worship. But the translators would not use the word worship because he's worshipping a man, Joseph. But this word doesn't mean worship. It literally means bow down all the way, that the one who bow is the smaller and the one who is being bowed to would be the greater. And you will notice Joseph is literally a god of the land. And so they bowed down before him with their faces to the earth, you see. That is the idea of paying homage, bowing all the way to the ground. So worshipping God is the same. So there is no English word called worship like in the Hebrew. Hebrew is always about bowing down, bowing down. In verse 7, Joseph then saw the brothers and recognized them, but he pretended as a stranger to them, and he spoke roughly to them. So he is play acting, because he doesn't want to reveal his real self. He says, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." As Joseph recognized his brothers, and they did not recognize him, and this is where the story takes a turn. Right? The brothers did not recognize him, and Joseph can now do something about it. Now, verse 9 is it's a different part of the story. It doesn't directly connect on, but it is part of the narrative, but from a different, I guess, a different section. Now, Joseph remembered the dreams. What are the dreams? He remembered 11 sheaths bowing down to one sheath. And that's one dream. Then he remembered 11 stars, the sun and the moon, bowing down to his star. That's the dream. And those were the dreams that got him into trouble. And so Joseph remembered those dreams, which he dreamed about them. And he said, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." Now, you need to understand what all this means, right? The first thing is, in verse 9, Joseph accused them of being spies. Now, this word spy means they walk, explore, with the purpose to conquer. Okay? That's what Joseph claim them to be. You're not here to trade. You're here to look at our land because we are so rich and filled with grain. You want to come and conquer us. You have come to see the terrain. The nakedness here literally means like how should you say? Nudity, to lay bare, to see the plain truth, the plain truth of the land, as is, naked, right? Not hidden. That's what it means. So Joseph is accusing them, oh, you're coming to check out the place, to see everything, and then you want to conquer. And verse 10 says this. It says, no, my Lord. Now notice all these words. Lord is Adoni. Lord to God is Adonai. It's the same Adon. A wife calls a husband Adon, Adoni. And so don't be alarmed when these words are used. The words like bowing down, worship, they only mean to bow down onto the ground. When you call somebody a Lord, it just dictates the fact that this person is in more authority, right? Maybe a king of some sort, right? So the brothers call him Adoni, but your servants, you see, they put themselves as servants to the Lord. We just came to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest men. So verse 11, honest means what? They are just. They are right? They are true. They are not telling lies. Your servants are not spies. We are not here to pretend to buy something, but later come to conquer, right? That's what they are insisting to Joseph. And then Joseph kept up the story. He says, no. But you have come to see the nakedness of the land. You have come to see what is there in the land that's not covered. And they say, no, your servants. You see? They call themselves servants, and they call Joseph as Lord. So the culture in those days is you call somebody who is more powerful than you, Lord. And then you will be their servants. You do as they say. We are 12 brothers, the son of one man in the land of Canaan. In fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more. And that would be Joseph, right? And so they are telling the truth. But Joseph insists, it is as I say to you, you are spies. And actually, it's just to push them. This is how you be tested. In verse 15, the word test means to be examined. All right? It would be tried. This is very similar to being tried and tested, right? I want to test to see whether you are truly what you say you are or not. That's what Joseph is saying. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. So send one of you, let him bring your brother, and you shall be all kept in prison. Prison is prison, where Joseph was kept as well. And that your words may be tested to see whether there's any truth. See? It explains itself. The word testing is to check for truth. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh. See, you notice what Joseph always did? He always used the name of Pharaoh. Why? Although he is number one in the land and number two on the throne, the power comes from Pharaoh. And so by the power of Pharaoh, he is doing all these things. I want to test and see whether you're spies. And so he put them all together in prison 3 days. You notice 3 is always used in the Hebrew term as a definiteness to push you to the limit, right? So when it talks about death, it's as though you're completely dead. Now, we come to verse 18. You notice when Joseph was in the prison, he interpreted 2 dreams. It's all about 3 days. In 3 days, in 3 days, and now they put them into the prison. And on the 3rd day, he says, do this and live. He had to just put them there for 3 days. For I fear God. Now let's take a look at these words, verse 18. The word here is this. I, Yara, this is literally fearing. And the word God is Elohim. And this would be the God that Jacob worships. And the brothers will also be familiar. And this is one of the first hints to the brother. I fear God. Now imagine, he is in Egypt. Why would he fear Elohim? Unless people in Egypt also knows Elohim, but they don't worship Elohim. Joseph, on the other hand, worships Elohim because he knows Elohim as somebody who has given him the ability to interpret dreams, made him special, had grace in the eyes of Potiphar, and then the guard of the prison, and then in the eyes of Pharaoh. And so Joseph knows Elohim in a personal way. The rest of the people may have heard of Elohim. So verse 19, if you are truly honest as what you say, then one of your brothers, instead all 11, one only is in prison, and then you all go and take all your grain to your houses, and then you bring your youngest brother to me. So when I verify, verse 20, verify means I make clear. Means I am sure now, I've done something, I checked it, that's verified. In the age of fake news, verification of news is important. And so Joseph said, I'm not going to take your word for it. You do all this, and then I can check your words. Then you shall not die. This is important. You shall not die. Is that I will not kill you. And so they left. They said to one another, we are truly guilty concerning our brother. What brother? He says, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us. What are they talking about? They remembered Joseph. Now they are feeling guilty about Joseph. And Joseph was actually pleading with them. Remember, Joseph was a relatively young man. But we would not hear. We don't want to do what he says. Right? In verse 21, that's what it means. And now it distress our soul. What does distress means? Distress means we are pressed. You know how you are pressed on both sides? You're very troubled. And so this came upon them. They cannot sleep. They feel very bad. And then Reuben, the eldest, says, hey, did I not say this to you? Don't do anything evil against the boy. See, what does it mean to sin? In verse 22, the word is translated as sin. It is actually about miss. It says, don't do anything against the boy. Don't do anything that missed the point. What missed the point? Now, this is the Hebrew way of expressing. When they dealt with Joseph and then threw him into the well and then sold him to the Ishmaelites, that is what Reuben said. Doing all these things is sinning against the boy. You have done wrong against the boy. You missed it. You're not treating him like a brother. That's what it means by sin. And so you would not listen. Interesting, right? Reuben has excluded himself from this. Why? Because Reuben didn't want to kill the boy, Joseph. He came back looking for Joseph, but didn't find him. It was too late. He says, therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. We have to answer for it. And this they were talking in front of Joseph. Now Joseph understood Hebrew, so understand this. They were speaking by themselves, and they did not know that Joseph understood them because they did not speak through an interpreter, which means that they were speaking Hebrew. And as they speak Hebrew, they knew what they were saying, and Joseph knew too. But Joseph, because he had spoken to them through an interpreter, these brothers didn't know that Joseph could understand. And in verse 24, he turned, walked away, and he wept. Why did he weep? He felt sorry for the brothers. He felt sorry because now he knows that the brothers were tortured by this event. They were so stressed with this. And now they are being punished. And that's how they are seeing it. They are seeing that they are being punished for what they have done to Joseph. Then he returned to them again and talked to them. Now, what did Joseph do? Joseph said, let's do this. I'm going to take Simeon and I'm going to send him into the prison. In verse 25, he says, fill their sacks with grain, restore every man's money, don't take their money, give them back, give them the provisions for the journey, and thus he did for them. Now this is a very strange thing because they expect to buy grain, and then of course they hit into this problem. And so they loaded their donkeys with grain, departed from there. But halfway through, one of them opened the sack to feed the donkey, and then he saw the money. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a problem. Joseph did not take the money. He said, my money has been restored. Notice this word restored, verse 28. The word restored means return. Return is another word for repent. And Joseph had accepted their remorse, how they feel that they have repented. They are very sorry for doing that against Joseph. But they don't know that Joseph knows all this. And so, by the word restore, it uses the same word as return, repent. He says, there it is in my sack, and their hearts failed them. What do you mean their hearts failed them? It means that their heart left their body. That is so scared, right? Their heart failed them means their heart left them. It's as if their heart jumped out of their skin, right? That's our modern day explanation. So it describes that they are so scared now. And so it says they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God has done to us? Now, this is something that you need to understand from the Hebrew culture. When something good happens, they ascribe it to God. When something bad happens, they also ascribe it to God. See, the ancients have many gods. They say, oh, there is a thunder and lightning, so God of the skies. And then there is earthquake, and says God of the ground. And then there is volcano, God of the fire. So there are many gods. They are worried about the powers. So the biggest power here is Elohim. You notice? They only worship one God, Elohim. And so they turn and says, as normal people, what has Elohim done to us? They think that way. Now, obviously, they are not modern men, but even modern men also think that way. When something happens, you ascribe it all the way back to God. And that is what they meant. Now, we know from the story that it wasn't God who did that, but they see God in every aspect. Now, seeing God doesn't mean God is actually doing that, right? God didn't punish them this way, but in so doing, Joseph was the one who executed this. So they went back to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan and told them everything. He says, the man who is Lord of the land, you notice? Lord of the land. This is Joseph. You notice they never talk about Pharaoh. Why? Because Pharaoh stayed in the palace, and the one who's doing everything out there, acting on behalf of Pharaoh, is Joseph. And Joseph, though number 2 in the land, he is number 1 overall, except for the throne. And then he spoke to us roughly, took us for spies of the country, said that we go and spy the place to conquer. And we said to them, we are honest men. And then we said, we are 12 brothers, sons of a father. One is no more, youngest is with the father in the land of Canaan. Then that man said, the Lord of the country says, I know you are honest if, number 1, leave one of your brothers here, and here, Simeon has taken place. Now you take food back and be gone. You bring your youngest brother, and this would be Benjamin. And then I will know that you're not spies. If you don't, then I know you are not honest. That is the test that put them in, and they are stuck. And then they told the father, no, when we emptied the sack, everybody's money was in the sack. And the father saw the money and they were afraid, including the father. It says, Tamla, this is really bad. Why? You have bereaved me. 36. You have bereaved me. Bereaved means to, it doesn't mean, how should I say, it doesn't mean bereavement in our modern sense. It actually means you miscarry me. Miscarry means the things that you do for me, you have done so many things that's wrong. And what are the things that has been so wrong? Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more, because in the mind of Jacob, he's not coming back. He's in the prison in Egypt. And now you want to take Benjamin, 3 sons? All these things are against me. And notice, he's a father. He's so crushed. And then Reuben said to the father, he is giving a guarantee to the father. Notice the kind of guarantee in the old days. You can kill my 2 sons if I don't bring him back. You put him in my hands, I will bring him back to you. This is the surety, the guarantee. Then he says, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead. Who is this saying? This is Jacob. He says, my son Benjamin, he is not going with you. So sorry. His brother Joseph is already dead, and he is alone. Why does it matter? Because the 2 sons are from the same mother. And which means that the care was also taken by each mother. So now, Benjamin is alone. If anything should befall him, then you will bring my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. And by grave, in verse 38, it would be Sheol. So understand, in the Hebrew terms, the afterlife is always in Sheol. So Jacob is saying, you take my son already, Joseph, and then you want to take Benjamin. If anything happens, I will be so sad all the way to the day I die. That is the feeling. Now we go to chapter 43. The famine was getting worse and worse in the land. After they had eaten everything that they had bought, the father once again says, go buy us a little food. But Judah spoke to him. Now a long time has come by. They finished all the food, and Joseph said, remember the man that was Joseph, right? He is like the God. So the man solemnly warned us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. So send your brother with us, and we will go down to buy food. But if you don't send him, we are not going down. For the man said, you don't see my face unless your brother is with you. So they are very obedient, right? And Israel said, why did you deal so wrongfully with me? What is so wrongful? So in verse 6, the father is saying, why are you doing this? When he says wrongful, it also comes from the word evil. So understand, the word evil is not bad. It's not morally bad. It has a broad range of meanings. When things are not working out the way it's supposed to, it's called evil. When you're expected to do a certain thing and it's not happening, that's evil. And so Jacob is saying, why are you doing this evil to me? This is wrong. I expect all my sons to be with me, but you want to take Benjamin. Do you think you have another brother? So many brothers to trade? And that is a feeling that Jacob had. But they said, you know, this man, he asked us pointedly. Verse 7. When he said, ask us pointedly, this particular phrase, it literally means he has emphasized in telling us what to do. He is not just suggestion. So the man is not suggesting, the man is instructing. He has said it so clearly that we cannot ignore. About ourselves and about our family. Saying, is your father still alive? This man seems to know us so well. And he says, have you another brother? How did he know? And we told him this. Could we possibly know that he would say, bring your brother down? This man seems to know everything. And then Judah said, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we, you, and our little ones. And I myself will be a surety. And this is what I want you to see. I will be a guarantee. You notice it's no longer Reuben who's saying this. It's Judah saying this to the father. I will be a guarantee. Right? And from my hand, you can demand of me. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, meaning in front of your face, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not lingered, surely by now we would have returned the second time. So he said, if we didn't delay, we would have come back with everyone. And so the story goes this way. In verse 11, and their father Israel, Jacob, said, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels. Although they had famine, they had fruits. So the famine is very much about grain. Why is grain so important? You cannot eat fruits every day forever. So you need grain because grain allows you to make flour and make different things, right? And so that's for food. And so they could not get grain. And there's plenty of grain in Egypt. And so Jacob said, bring some fruits. Bring some fruits. That would be useful, right? And carry them as a present for the man. A little balm, a little honey, spices, myrrh. Now, this one is interesting. Verse 11. This says pistachio nuts. Pistachio nuts. It is, well, the Hebrew doesn't say pistachio, right? The Hebrew says it's botan or batna. 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 And it's a description of a nut that opens up a little bit. like the womb opening up. And they are called pistachio nuts. So we call hoi sam go because it opens up as if it was laughing, right? But they call this the botna nuts. That it actually opens up like a womb, right? That's what they have. That's what they call it. And almonds. These are all native to Israel. Take double money in your hand because you have to pay them. And maybe it was an oversight. No, somebody just made a boo-boo. And then make sure that we are honest people, we pay back. Take your brother also and arise, go back to the man, and may God Almighty. Verse 14. What do you think that means? May El Shaddai give you mercy before the man. Interesting. Is God greater than the man? Yes. And the God may give mercy, have compassion. This is what compassion means. Compassion before him so that he won't do anything bad to you. That he may release your other brother, and this is Simeon and Benjamin that you're bringing. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. And he has come to terms with his life. If I have to die sad, I have to die sad. Verse 14. Now, verse 15 onwards. The story is simple. Took the present, Benjamin, double money in their hand, rose, went down to Egypt. Remember, going down to a lower ground. And they stood before Joseph. Right? Verse 15. They stood before Joseph, literally means stand in his face, in front of him, not behind him, right? Because the face is always the front, where he can see. And when Joseph saw Benjamin, he said to the steward of his house. Steward of his house would be the man of his house, the one who runs the house, right? The man of the house. Says, take these men to my house. Remember, they are so afraid of Joseph, and yet Joseph says, come to my house, and we will kill an animal and we will eat together. This is famine time. And Joseph is suggesting we're going to have a little celebration. These men will dine with me at noon. Now notice, they are buying grain back. So eating meat is a luxury. The man did as Joseph ordered, and everybody went to Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house. He says, wow, why did he bring us? Is it because of the money that was in our sacks the first time that we brought in so that he may make a case and judge us and throw us into prison and take us as slaves with our donkeys? And that's in the old days when you overpower a person, you take everything he has. So they are so afraid now. Verse 19. When they came near to the house, the steward said, oh, sir, they said to it, we indeed came down the first time to buy food, but it happened we came to the camp and then we opened our sacks. You know, all our money was there. So we brought it back, and so now we are paying you to buy the food. We don't know who put the money in our sacks. But he said, peace be with you. Interesting, isn't it? In verse 23. Is that an Egyptian? Well, this peace is shalom. And it means that they can talk to each other. It looks like this man who is the head of the house of Joseph might be a Hebrew. And so he says to them, shalom, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money. Then he brought Simeon out to them. Well, Simeon, lo and behold, is not in prison. He's in the house of Joseph. So this gives us a sneak preview of how Joseph lived. So the man brought the men, which are the brothers, into Joseph's house, gave them water. They washed their feet. So remember, washing of feet is not just the New Testament. Washing of feet is a culture. You either wash your feet or a servant wash your feet. So they wash their own feet because they are supposed to be servants, right? And they gave their donkeys feet. And when they made their present ready and waiting for Joseph to come in at noon. In verse 25, noontime means it's midday, right? Midday. Meaning after he has finished his job, he heard that they would be eat bread there. Now, you must understand, the word eat bread is literally eating bread, but idiomatically is to have fellowship. Okay? Have fellowship. You will never eat with an enemy. You will eat before your enemies. So you show that you are being pampered, but your enemies cannot eat. But when you eat with somebody, you are putting them on an equal where you're sitting at the same table. So you eat bread means to have a relationship, have a fellowship. But it also means literally eating bread. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present. You know the present, all the fruits and the honey and everything. And they bowed down again. Verse 26. The bowing down is bowing down all the way to the ground. All the way to the ground. Now, Joseph asked them. One of the things that you have to notice when you start studying a passage like this is know who is talking to who. Who is a they? Who is a him? Who is their? Who is him here? Who is he? Then this would be Joseph. Then you know how the story goes. So Joseph asked them their well-being. How are you all? Is your father well? The old man whom you spoke about, is he still alive? So the whole charade is still happening. And they answered, yes, your servant, our father. And so they place themselves beneath Joseph. He's in good health. He is still alive. And then they bow their heads down and prostrated themselves. You see this word, bow? It literally means all the way to the ground. They are so afraid of Joseph. And what does this tell you? It gives you a little picture of the dream that he had. That all the sheaves are bowing down to Joseph. All the stars and the sun and moon are bowing down to the star. Right? This is all happening. So let us wrap this up. Verse 29. He, who is he? Joseph. And Joseph lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. Who is his mother? Rachel, right? It says, is this your younger brother whom you spoke to me about? He said, God be gracious to you, my son. Read this. It's not in the English, it's in the Hebrew. And it says this, Elohim. That is their God as well, right? Elohim have favor. Grace and favor is the same. Or Elohim bless you. Elohim have favor, have grace upon you. So that's what it means. Now his heart yearned for his brother. What does it mean, yearn for the brother? Yearn means to grow hot. It is to be kindled. He is lifted up in the heart. He is so fervent for compassion of his brother. That is what it means. So you notice being hot can mean good and can mean bad. So when you're angry, it burns hot. When you are loving and compassionate, you are also kindled, right? And so Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. He just could not hold his emotions. he had to cry. So he went into his sleeping place and he wept there. Must be crying quite badly, right? Quite badly. And the word here means not just to shed tears, is to wail as well, right? It is to weep in such way where it is like lamenting. It's like lament. It's like bereavement, right? You have lost a loved one. And he was so moved, and that is how it seems. That's the emotion in this word. Verse 31, he washed his face. He came out. This is like a normal guy, right? When you're all teared up, your eyes red, and your face is all blurred up, he washed himself and then he restrained. He was very careful with what he said. Verse 31, and he went out and he was, in the Hebrew it says he be strong. This word restrain. He be strong. What do you mean by be strong? It means that he is able to contain himself. He's holding himself back, right? Hold back. So that he doesn't let his emotions run ahead of him. And he came back, he is like that Joseph is selling grain. He says, serve the bread. And these are all with royalty, right? Serve the bread. Now in the next section, they set him a place by himself. And them by themselves. So it looks like there are two tables. One for Joseph, because remember, Joseph is number one in the land, number two on the throne. Them by themselves, and these are people who say, I'm your servant, right? And then there's a third table. The Egyptians are also there who is serving in the home, and they also by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. We learn a little bit of the culture here in Egypt. The Hebrews would be the brothers. Joseph is a Hebrew, so he sat by himself, but he's of a different level. And the Egyptians are a table by themselves because it is an abomination to the Egyptians. What is an abomination? 32. Abomination literally means it's something that they cannot share food. It is disgusting to them. Why? Because the gods that the Egyptians worship is not the gods that Hebrew worship. The food that Hebrew eat is not the food that the Egyptians eat, and that kind of thing. So they cannot sit together to eat. They can be in the same room, but they can't sit together. And so they sat before him. They, who is they? The brothers. As the brothers, all 11 of them sat before him. Who is him? Joseph. The firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked astonished at one another. What did Joseph do? He says, you, Reuben, you sit here. And as firstborn all the way down. Now you notice there is two words here, the firstborn and birthright. Firstborn generally has birthright. Firstborn does not always have birthright. In the case of Esau, he is the firstborn. He has the birthright, but he sold it for a bowl of soup to Jacob. And so this is what firstborn and birthright means. They go hand in hand most of the time, but sometimes they don't. And then they were surprised. How did this man know? Then he took servings to them. Look at this. This is Joseph serving them, not the man of the house. Joseph serving them, but Benjamin serving was 5 times as much. So if there was 1 drumstick, there was 5 drumsticks for Benjamin. And they drank and they were merry with him. This seems to be a celebration. And this is a celebration because they were reconciled. We come to the end. We are almost at 12:30. Let me just end here, so we'll continue later on. We are in chapter 43. We have 7 chapters to go and we will be done very soon. Any questions? Any questions?
So Joseph can speak Egyptian language?
Yes, yeah. The question is, can Joseph speak Egyptian language? And the answer is yes. Remember the life of Joseph in Exodus chapter 2. You would later, sorry, not Moses. With regards to Joseph, because he has served in Potiphar, and then he stayed in prison for a while, and then he had to speak to Pharaoh, so he would have learned the language besides Hebrew. And that's why he was so well liked. He could speak to them, right? He could speak to them, yeah.
And he pretend that he doesn't
Yeah.
know.
So in this case, he pretended that he was a true Egyptian, and he knows no Hebrew. But you notice the man of the house, when he greeted the brothers, says, Shalom. You know? And that indicates that this man of the house is likely to be a Hebrew as well. But then those who serve in the house, the head may be Hebrew, but the rest may be Egyptians. Right? And Pharaoh knows that Joseph is a Hebrew. So they use the word Hebrew because that is the term of the people who came in from the river, from the other side. They are not native Egyptians, right? They're not native Egyptians. Yep. Okay? Any other questions? You notice the Hebrew diet and the Egyptian diet is also different. Yeah. Now, very strange. I just want to highlight to you, the diet is different. And this is a time where they didn't have the law yet, you know. They haven't been given the law, and yet they know that these are things that they don't eat. And so when they were given the law in the book of Leviticus, they were not surprised. So as they go in these 12 brothers, Joseph and the 11 brothers, and they are called Hebrews, they have a diet which carried down the line. And they were particular about what they eat and what they don't eat. So their diet is really not strictly legal. It was just placed into the law so that the other generations would know about it. Egyptians, makan apa-apa pun, right? They eat everything. All right? In chapter 42, verse 18, God says, I fear God. And why does he say he feared God? He feared Elohim, you know. He is not fearing any God. And in this case, he said, I fear Elohim. I don't believe Joseph meant all the gods of the land. I really believe that Joseph was saying he feared the God of the Hebrew people, the Elohim who made the world in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. And in so doing, he set them free. He set them free, and he only kept Simeon. And you know, everything he did, he was trying to teach them a lesson. He was also being very compassionate with them. He is not going to punish them greater than what God would do against them. And so that I think that would be the first hint that Joseph is not quite the person that everybody thought that he was, the God of the land, right? Because the brothers still see Joseph as that Egyptian God of the land. But these would be clues. And so the way that Joseph asked questions already made them wonder, you know, how is it that he seems to know? All right? Then we'll continue next week. We'll be done in chapter 50 very soon. All right, bye.